Remember, Your Majesty, your confession has just begun. After I wring from you a description of the methods by which you control people, I will force you also to give the formula by which your control can be broken at will. Your control can be broken at will. Your control can be broken at will. It is true I shall not remain here long enough to defeat you, but the published word I leave behind me will be deathless, because it will consist of truth. You fear the opposition of no individual, because you know it will be short, but you do fear truth. You fear truth and nothing else, for the reason it is slowly but definitely giving human beings freedom from all manner of fear. Without the weapon of fear, you would be helpless and entirely unable to control any human being. Without the weapon of fear, you would be helpless and entirely unable to control any human being. Is that true or false?
I have no alternative but to admit that what you say is true.
So for those of you who haven't seen my video, When or How I Defeated the Devil, it is on River Queen Conjure. But basically, it is the story of how I would have a recurring dream about the devil. For many years, until I was about 9 or 10 years old, the devil would be at the other end of the hallway, basically taunting me to move forward, basically trying to keep me frightened of moving forward, which is all is very symbolic. One night I had the dream, and in my spirit, I was being told to go ahead and move forward. I was asking myself, why is he not moving forward? If he's so bad and he can do so much to you, why has he never moved forward either? He just stands at the other end of the hallway, basically trying to scare you and keep you afraid to move forward. So I gathered the courage one night, and I started to walk forward in the dream. And the minute that I began to walk forward in the dream, he turned from the classic red devil with the horns and pitchfork to a gesture clown, okay, which was very, very symbolic. Also, the more that I walked closer, the more and more transparent he became. And when I got within arm's reach of him, he disappeared, okay, which basically was letting me know that his power does rest in the fear that you have, which is what he just stated in this book. And that as soon as you lose that fear, he not only has no power, he fails to even exist in your world. Okay?
Now that we understand each other, let us go ahead with your confession. But before we continue, I may as well take time out to do a little boasting on my own account, now that you have had your fling at it. I will confine myself to one question, the answer to which will give me all the satisfaction I want. Is it not true that you control only the minds of those who have allowed the drifting habit to be fixed upon them?
Yes, that is true. I have already admitted this truth in a dozen or more different ways. Why do you tantalize me by repeating the question?
There is power in repetition. There is power in repetition. Power in repetition. I'm forcing you to repeat the highlights of your confession in as many different ways as possible, so your victims may check this interview and determine its soundness by their own experiences with you. That is one of my little tricks. Do you approve of my method?
You couldn't be setting a trap for me for the purpose of doing some more boasting, could you?
I am asking the questions, and you are doing the answering. Go ahead now and confess why you are powerless to stop me from forcing this confession from you. I want your confession for aid and comfort to victims of yours whom I intend to release from your control the moment they read your confession.
I am powerless to influence or control you, because you have found the secret approach to my kingdom. You know that I exist only in the minds of people who have fears. You know that I control only the drifters who neglect to use their own minds. You know that my hell is here on earth and not in the world that comes after death.
So remember what I said about all is mind, okay? And think about the mind and the mental state of the narcissist, okay? So understand, if you know a narcissist and their thought patterns and the things that it causes them to do, they're vibrating very low, and they are all suffering some form of mental and emotional anguish, okay? So the narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths are the human hosts for this demonic energy. And if you look closely enough, you can see that their hell is happening right here and now on earth, okay?
And you know also that drifters supply all the fire I use in my hell. You know that I am a principle or form of energy which expresses the negative side of matter and energy, and that I am not a person with a forked tongue and a spiked tail. You have become my master because you have mastered all your fears. Lastly, you know that you can release all of my earthbound victims whom you contact. And this definite knowledge is the blow with which you will deal me the greatest damage. I cannot control you because you have discovered your own mind, and you have taken charge of it. There now, Mr. Earthbound, that confession should feed your vanity to the bursting point.
That last dart was unnecessary. Knowledge of the sort I have used to master you does not contaminate itself with vulgar indulgence and vanity. Truth is the one and only thing in the world that can stand ridicule. Now let us continue with your confession. What is wrong with the principle of flattery? You use it, do you not?
Do I use it? Man alive, flattery is one of my most useful weapons. With this deadly instrument I slay the big ones and the little ones.
Your admission interests me. Go ahead now and tell me how you make use of flattery.
I make use of it in so many ways it is difficult to know where to begin. I warn you, before I answer in detail, that publishing my answers will bring down an avalanche of ridicule on your head for bringing up the question.
I'll take the responsibility. Proceed.
Well, I may as well here admit that you have stumbled onto the major secret of how I convert people to the habit of drifting.
That is a startling admission. Go ahead with your confession, and stick strictly to this subject of flattery. No more side remarks and no more facetiousness for the present. Tell me all about your use of flattery in gaining control over people.
Flattery is a bait of incomparable value to all who wish to gain control over others. It has powerful pulling qualities because it operates through two of the most common human weaknesses, vanity and egotism. There is a certain amount of vanity and egotism in everyone. In some people, these qualities are so pronounced, they literally serve as a rope by which one may be bound. The best of all ropes is flattery. Flattery is the chief bait through which men seduce women. Sometimes, in fact, frequently, women use the same bait to gain control of men, especially men who cannot be mastered through sex appeal. I teach its use to both men and women. Flattery is the chief bait with which my agents weave their way into the confidence of people from whom they procure information needed to carry on warfare.
Well, first of all, Mr. President, I'd like to congratulate you on a really great World Cup.
But you are just so fun to be around.
Aw, thank you.
I'm having the time of my life.
One of the best ever.
Oh my gosh, you guys, the house is beautiful.
From what everybody tells me, one of the best ever.
You are the best.
And also for your team itself doing so well.
Please don't let this be the last
Oh,
time.
girl, this ain't the last.
You
This is the
promise?
beginning.
Wherever anyone stops to feed his vanity on flattery, I move in and begin to build another drifter. Non-drifters are not easily flattered. I inspire people to use flattery in every human relationship where its use is possible, because those who are influenced by it become easy victims of the drifting habit.
Can you control anyone who is amenable to flattery?
Very easily. As I have already told you, flattery is of major importance in alluring people into the habit of drifting.
At what age are people most susceptible to flattery?
Age has nothing to do with one's susceptibility to flattery. People respond to it in one way or another from the time they become conscious of their own existence until they die.
Through what motive can women be most easily flattered?
Their vanity. Tell a woman she is pretty or that she wears clothes well.
What motive is most effective in harpooning men?
Egotism, with a capital E. Tell a man he has a strong Herculean body or that he is a great business tycoon, and he will purr like a cat and smile like an opossum. After that, you know what happens.
Are all men like that?
Oh, no. 2 out of every 100 have their egotism so thoroughly under control that even an expert flatterer couldn't get under their skins with a double-edged butcher knife.
How does a cunning woman apply her art of flattery in attracting men?
Great heavens, man, do I have to draw a picture of her method for you? Have you no imagination?
Oh yes, I have imagination enough, Your Majesty. But I'm thinking of the poor dupes of the world who need to understand the exact technique with which they may be flattered into the habit of drifting. Go on and tell us how a woman can harpoon rich and presumably smart men.
This is a devilish trick to play on women, but since you demand the information, I am helpless to withhold it. Women influence men through a technique consisting first of ability to inject soft, cooing baby tones into their voices.
Oh, hi. Hi, Sheer 7. I'm back. Oh, that's so funny.
And second, by closing their eyes into a half-closed position, which registers hypnotism in connection with the flattery of men.
This is my new look. Do you like it? Do you don't like it?
Is that all there is to the business of flattery?
No.
You don't have to be weak. You can act weak. I mean, every woman can act, right? If I need something done, I'll act like, I don't know how to do this, you know?
Oh, that is only the technique. Then comes the motive a woman uses as a lure.
You get out of a bunch of work. You don't probably have to pay as many bills. And you're just like, oh.
The type of woman you perhaps have in mind never sells a man herself or anything she can give him. Instead, she sells him his own egotism. His own egotism.
I don't know how to do this, you know? Oh my gosh. Can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me?
Is that all that women use when they wish to flatter men?
That is the most effective thing they use. It works when sex appeal fails.
You see a transsexual. It's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell because they look and act so feminine.
The key words here are look and act. So the drifter would be the man who falls for the look and or the act. They are not paying close enough attention, and therefore
they're getting tricked by men who dress like women.
So I am to believe that big, strong, smart men can be wound up and manipulated through flattery just as if they were so much putty? Is that possible?
Is it possible? It is happening every minute of the day.
I'm going to go find somebody little and helpless so I can feel like a big, strong man.
Moreover, unless they are non-drifters, the bigger they come, the harder they fall when the expert flatterer moves in on them.
If you play dumb for certain things, do you know how far you can get? When I need a vacation, when I want to go shopping, when I want to do this, I know how to get it. I just like, you know what? That shirt looks so good on you. What brand is that? I'm telling y'all to act like this and get what you need to get. Okay? You need to act your ass off. Okay?
And tell me of some of your other tricks with which you cause people to drift in life.
One of my most effective devices is failure. The majority of people begin to drift as soon as they meet with opposition. And not 1 out of 10,000 will keep on trying after failing 2 or 3 times.
So it is your business to induce people to fail whenever you can. Is that correct?
You have it right. Failure breaks down one's morale, destroys self-confidence, subdues enthusiasm, dulls imagination, and drives away definiteness of purpose. Without these qualities, no one can permanently succeed in any undertaking. The world has produced thousands of inventors with abilities superior to that of the late Thomas A. Edison, but these men have never been heard of, while the name of Edison will go marching on, because Edison converted failure into a stepping stone to achievement, while the others used it as an alibi for not producing results.
Funny that he would mention Thomas Edison's quote-unquote achievements, because I had already, before I even got to this part of the book, I had already used Nikola Tesla's picture when they were speaking about the 2% who would not be affected by flattery. And Nikola Tesla is the man that he's vaguely referring to when he speaks of inventors who were superior to Thomas Edison, but who had never been heard of. Again, this was 1938, and still to this day, Nikola Tesla does not get the recognition that he should get because egotistical, narcissistic people such as Tom Edison and George Westinghouse literally stole Nikola Tesla's inventions, put their names on it, took the credit for inventing it and have been profiting from it throughout history. Okay?
Is the capacity to surmount failure without being discouraged one of Henry Ford's chief assets?
Yes, and this same quality is the chief asset of every man who attains outstanding success in any calling.
That statement covers lots of territory, Your Majesty. Do you not wish to modify it or tone it down a bit for the sake of accuracy?
No modification is necessary, because the claim is none too broad.
So the capacity to surmount or overcome failure without being discouraged is the chief asset of anyone who escapes the devil's traps and achieves success. Okay?
Search accurately into the lives of men and women who achieve enduring success, and you will find without exception that their success has been in exact proportion to the extent that they surmounted failure. The life of every successful person loudly acclaims that which every true philosopher knows. Every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. But the seed will not germinate and grow under the influence of a drifter. It springs to life only when it is in the hands of one who recognizes that most failures are only temporary defeat, and who never, under any circumstances, accepts defeat as an excuse for drifting.
In other words, when you fail, do not accept defeat, but use the power of your mind to visualize and figure out how you're going to get back up and eventually win the race. Okay?
If I understand you correctly, you claim there is virtue in failure. That does not seem reasonable. Why do you try to induce people to fail if there is virtue in failure?
There is no inconsistency in my claims. The appearance of inconsistency is due to your lack of understanding. Failure is a virtue only when it does not lead one to quit trying and begin drifting.
So failure is a virtue when you allow it to make you stronger and to motivate you, and it's not a virtue when you allow it to defeat you. So it would be very beneficial going into any endeavor that we go after, knowing off top that failure could quite possibly be a part of the path, okay? And so when we and if we fail, that we do not become discouraged, but that we allow this to motivate us, that we look at the examples that have been set by other successful people, knowing that they also experienced failure, and that failure is, 99% of the time, it is a temporary setback, and that if we keep going, we will eventually reach our destination. Okay?
I induce as many people as I can to fail as often as possible, for the reason that not 1 out of 10,000 will keep on trying after failing 2 or 3 times.
So he induces as many people as he can to fail as many times as he can, because he knows that only 1 out of every 10,000 people is going to continue trying after failing 2 or 3 times, okay? So knowing going into any endeavor that the devil is intentionally throwing obstacles into your way, you should not be discouraged by failures, okay? You should be prepared to fail 3, 4, 5 times. You should be prepared to fail as many times as is necessary to get to the point where now you are closer to success. Okay, understand that failure is a part of the path, because there is an enemy intentionally trying to discourage you, and you should resolve within yourself not to be discouraged. Okay,
I am not concerned about the few who convert failures into stepping stones, because they belong to my opposition anyway. They are the non-drifters, and therefore they are beyond my reach.
Your explanation clears up the matter. Now go ahead and tell me of some of your other tricks with which you allure people into drifting.
One of my most effective tricks is known to you as propaganda. This is the instrument of greatest value to me in setting people to murdering one another under the guise of war. The cleverness of this trick consists mainly of the subtlety with which I use it. I mix propaganda with the news of the world. I have it taught in public and private schools. I see that it finds its way into the pulpit. I color moving pictures with it. I see that it enters every home where there is a radio. I inject it into billboard, newspaper, and radio advertising. I spread it in every place of business where people work. I use it to fill the divorce courts, and I make it serve to destroy business and industry. It is my chief instrument for starting runs on banks. My propagandists cover the world so thoroughly that I can start epidemics of disease, turn loose the dogs of war, or throw business into a panic at will.
If you can do all that you claim with propaganda, it is little wonder that we have wars and business depressions. Give me a simple description of what you mean by the term propaganda. Just what is it, and how does it work? I wish to know particularly how you cause people to drift through the use of this devilish device.
Propaganda is any device, plan, or method by which people can be influenced without knowing that they are being influenced, or the source of the influence. Propaganda is used in business for the purpose of discouraging competition. Employers use it to gain advantage over their employees. The employees retaliate by using it to gain advantage over their employers. In fact, it is used so universally and through such a smooth and beautiful streamlined technique that it looks harmless even when it is detected.
I suppose some of your boys are now engaged in preparing the minds of the American people to drift into some form of dictatorship. Tell me how they work.
Yes, millions of my boys are preparing Americans to become Hitlerized. My best boys are working through politics and labor organization. We intend to take over the country with ballots instead of bullets. Americans are so sensitive they would never stand the shock of seeing their former government changed with the aid of machine guns and tank cars. So our propaganda boys are serving them a diet they will swallow by stirring up strife between employers and employees and turning the government against business and industry. When propaganda has done its work thoroughly, one of my boys will move in as dictator, and the 9 old men on your Supreme Court with their silly notions of the Constitution will move out.
Though this conversation was taking place in or before the year 1938, since every government that has been in place in this country has always had the same agenda, he may as well be speaking of the government that we currently have in place.
Everyone will be given a job or fed from the government treasury. When men's bellies are filled, they drift freely with one who does the filling. Hungry men get out from under control.
I have often wondered who invented the clever trick which you call propaganda. From what you tell me of its source and nature, I understand why it is so deadly. Only one as clever as your Majesty could have invented such a device with which to dull the reason, dethrone the will, and lure men into drifting. Why do you not use your powerful propaganda to gain control of your victims, instead of subduing them through fear and annihilating them through warfare?
What is fear of the devil except propaganda? You have not observed my technique very carefully, or you would have seen that I am the world's greatest propagandist. I never attain an end by direct, open means which I can achieve through subterfuge and subtlety. What do you suppose I am using when I plant negative ideas in the minds of men, and gain control of them through what they believe to be their own ideas? What would you call that, except the cleverest of all forms of propaganda?
Surely you are not going to tell me that you destroy people through their own help without their realizing what you are doing.
That is exactly what I wish you to understand. Moreover, I will show you exactly how the trick is performed.
Now we are getting somewhere. Exactly how do you convert human beings into propagandists and lure them into self-imprisonment? Give me the story with all its lurid details. This is the most important part of your confession, and I'm consumed with eagerness to gain control of your secret. I can hardly blame you for stalling about answering my question, because you know so well that your answer will snatch millions of innocent victims from your control. You also know that your answer will protect other countless millions of yet unborn people from being victimized by you. It is little wonder you are hedging about answering.
Your deductions are correct. This part of my confession will do me more damage than all the remainder of it.
Stating your headache in a better way, this part of your confession will save more millions of people from your control than all the remainder of it.
All I can say is that you have me in a hell of a situation.
And we're going to end lesson 10 right here, guys. Okay, so if you missed the beginning of the video, I suggest you go back to the beginning when we're done so that you get all of the information. I also suggest that you guys go back over the areas that were looped or repeated. Make sure that you do get that information. It is very important going forward. Also, shout out to Ashira's Star Goddess. Okay, before any rumors or speculation gets started, there is no ill intent between me and Ashira. Ashira is doing her thing. I have mad respect for any woman doing their thing. Ashira has some great information for women over there, so I would suggest that y'all get over there and check her out. I just simply used the clips that I used because I felt like it was a perfect example of the lesson that was being taught, okay, and nothing more. So, you know, shout out to Ashira's Star Goddess. And if anyone needs me for the group, the email is goddess, GODESS 111@gmail.com. If it's not pertaining to the group, you can email me at BadassWitches with an EZ at gmail.com. I am going to be reading Nature Boy on Badass Tarot 2 using my new deck within the next 24 hours. So you want to subscribe to Badass Tarot 2 if you're not already subscribed over there. And because Nature Boy is not locked up in Nicaragua, there's a lot of speculation about what's going to be happening with his cult carbonation. So I am going to be doing a reading with my new deck on the carbonation cult. Okay, and until we meet again, my people, keep it classy, keep it clean, and do what you got to do to make shit happen. Peace.